All
We're
right.
live.
Thanks, Orsolia.
So Orsolia, I'm assuming you're still listening. So we were planning on just saying to our audience that we will have you email out the handout again.
Well, although I had emailed her yesterday saying there was one of the participants had said that if you click on the save link on the download, they can save it and they don't have to
open
print
it at that time. Okay,
Yeah.
so I didn't even see that save link.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, when you open that up, I will see if I can find that. Yeah. Hello, welcome back.
Good morning. Is it pronounced Erin? We were wondering that. We were chatting about it yesterday, actually. We're like, we don't want to screw it up.
Morning, morning. Oh, this is great.
Good morning.
There is a
Arun.
preponderance of men.
Oh, thank you. Thank you
I
for
was
that.
right. I said it right.
You said it right. I thought
It's
I was guessing that it was maybe a bit like our Carissa, who gets called Charissa all the time, because her dad figured that was how Carissa was spelled.
Well, it is actually. It is.
Yeah.
But I think he picked the wrong pronunciation. I don't know. Hello from Quebec. Bonjour. I wish that I could speak better French. I would say something, but I'll just embarrass myself.
Make your daughter. Have your daughter come in and say hello.
Yeah. In my brain, I know what to say, but when it comes out of my mouth, it sounds like, yeah. Hi, Diane.
Like Indonesian, Dutch, French?
I don't even know.
Oh.
This is great. I recognize some of the names, so that means we didn't fully alienate everybody.
We did something intentionally right.
Well, when I was walking the dog, I thought of a good opening story. Haha.
Oh, good.
Never let me walk the dog.
Yeah, it's nice out today. We're going to have a good day today. Hopefully. So somebody said they're from Quebec. Where is everybody else from this morning?
Well, it's nice. I find the weather is nice. The sunny temperature, the sunny skies and the bright blue and everything. But the wind is cold.
Oromocto. Oh, lovely. Our other colleague who's on maternity leave is from around those parts. I believe her.
And Fredericton. Oh, nice.
Yeah, I want to say that Nicole's dad lives in around Fredericton and her mom lives around Oromocto. So them both here.
That's awesome.
And I'm originally from Winnipeg, Diane. So those are my old stomping grounds. That's where I was born.
Petawawa. Good old Petawawa. How's the weather in Petawawa? Cloudy. Well, that's all right. As long as it's not snowing.
I think we may get one more of that yet. I think we're a little hopeful that these blue skies are just going to stay.
Oh, for sure. Probably it's going to snow right when all the leaves have budded. And then wreck our trees. Aren't I just a ray of sunshine this morning? Oh, Petawawa originally from Nova. Well, really, I mean, I feel like most of Canada is originally from Newfoundland.
Especially here in Alberta.
That's only for McMurray.
Yeah, Alberta has a lot of folks from the Maritimes out here.
Yeah, which is awesome because we love folks from the Maritimes. Well, really, we love folks from Canada. Yeah. We're so friendly. Don't let our premiere throw you off.
Yes.
All right, 8:32. I don't know. Shall we?
Let's get just 2 more minutes just to see. Halifax, hello.
Oh, that's a pretty name too. The only downside with my story is that there needs to be singing.
dear.
Kingston. Oh, Kingston is so pretty. I love Kingston.
Yes, it's beautiful there.
I need to send someone a join link. Okay. Excellent. More joiners. I miss Kingston. Oh.
I could definitely live there. It's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And some good restaurants you guys have. I was out visiting a friend that lives there and got to, and I'm a real foodie, so really enjoyed the food in your town. Before we let you all log on, Carissa was talking about making vegan meat, her first attempt at it. And we're not vegetarians, either one of us, but she likes to experiment in the kitchen. She's actually a home economist. So that's her background, is playing with food in the kitchen. And she said it was very interesting.
Oh, vegan rocks. Okay.
Yes, creating her.
I made a large grain.
Yeah, brain food.
That's what it looks like. But hopefully it'll taste like chicken later. I think that's hilarious. So you're making vegan meat and you can make it taste like anything. But I mean, if a person says, yeah, so I had rattlesnake. Oh, what did it taste like? Chicken. Oh yeah, I had alligator. What did it taste like? Chicken. I'm making vegan meat. I hope it tastes like chicken.
All right, Carissa, shall we get started then?
Let's start.
Okay.
Animal products cause all the sicknesses and pandemics. Oh, well, right now, certainly seems that way.
Cook your meat well.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go to the raw food or raw meat markets. Okay, well, welcome back to everybody who is returning, and a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time today. We're really happy that you've chosen to tune in to our talk, because Heather and I are very excited about talking about that most underutilized of skills, listening. It's something that we probably all take for granted. And when it doesn't happen, when we don't feel like we've been listened to, or we've not listened well, sometimes really bad things can happen. So when I was thinking about that, it's kind of like when you're listening to a song and you can't understand the words on the radio. And it almost doesn't matter how many times, because, okay, so the song that I was singing was, and here's what I think it said: I don't do shit for you. And that's not what he's saying. But it wasn't until someone said, yeah, you're singing that wrong, which of course is usually what happens. And it's been wishing for you. So if you're not hearing the right words, sometimes it doesn't matter how hard you try to listen. You just really need to get a little bit more clarification. We're going to talk about that later on. So sorry for the bad singing. I won't sing anymore. My name is Carissa McKay. I'm not a singer. I am one of the health promotion specialists in Edmonton, and with me is my friend and coworker.
Hi, I'm Heather Gurrow-Miller. I'm one of the other health promotion specialists in Edmonton. So Chris and I love facilitating together. We're sort of two peas in a pod. Although we have very different personalities, we really mesh well, and we can kind of finish each other's sentences. So we love doing this together.
So before we get started, same old, we're just going to review the stuff that we have to go over, which is that the presentation you are about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense, and any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained herein is strictly forbidden.
So although for the most part, this presentation that we're giving should be child-friendly, we do like to give a warning that there may be topics of a sensitive nature that may not be appropriate for the children around you. So just some parental discretion if you have some wee ones running around behind you.
And we're going to implement the old Vegas rule again. So please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in the webinar, either by camera or the chat, is not to be discussed outside of the webinar. You can take the learnings, just not the stories.
And just so you know, the webinar is being recorded, and that will allow for it to be available at a later date on the CAF Connection for people that couldn't tune in today. But knowing that, we aren't going to be using the microphone or the video for all of you, so you won't be seen. But if you prefer not to chat because it's being recorded, that is your preference. That's fine with us. Although we really do encourage you to join in and chat a little bit with us, because it makes it a lot more fun for us and for all of you. So we want to ask you again, just as Anthony, the webinar should be around 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how chatty Carissa and I get, but we promise that at 60 minutes we will be done, okay? Ooh, that might be a bad promise to make. So as we did last week, we're just asking you guys to tell us where, how you're affiliated with D&D. So if you look up at the top right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see chat, polls, and handouts. So just click on the polls, and I will put up that first poll that asks you how you're affiliated with us, and just have you fill that in for us. Wonderful. Just gives us a sense of who is logging in and if we are making those connections that we are hoping to make in doing these webinars. Because it's definitely been a challenge without DWAN access to be able to get this information to the people that we want to get it to. So thank you for letting us know where you're from. It's very exciting to see a nice distribution of at least one from every part of our organization.
Oh, and MFRC. Sorry, Melissa. Thanks.
Yes.
So before we begin, we're just going to do a very quick review and reflection of last week. So if you didn't join last week, that's not a big deal, but it'll give you a bit of a sense of what we were talking about. For those of you tuning in again, hopefully it's going to give us a chance to refresh our memories and reflect on what we learned if you chose to participate in some of the things that were in that Getting to the Core of It handout.
So for those of you that tuned in last week, this was part of the handout that we gave out. Now, whether you chose to download it or not, or whether you were actually tuning in last week or not, we still like you to just think about the statements that are here and how you might finish one or two of those. It doesn't it's not the whole handout, but it's just a little snippet of some of the questions that we asked you to sort of think about over the past week. So just as an example, for me, one of the things that I was thinking about this morning was, it's really interesting to be working at home with my husband. And I'm sure Carissa can speak to that too. Her husband is a lawyer, and you know, she sees him as her husband and her daughter's dad, but she doesn't get to see him in action. And now she's working with him side by side, although they at least have their own offices in their space because he has his own building to work in. But my husband and I are working here at home, and I'm watching him work. And it's really been a sense of appreciation for how good my husband is at his job and watching him kind of do his thing, and it's sort of neat. So I'm really showing that appreciation of being able to witness another part of my husband that I don't get to see on a regular basis.
So if there's anything that anybody else feels comfortable sharing, we would certainly encourage you to do that in the chat. And for me, I've been needing to take more responsibility for my feelings and actions, especially as it is with respect to my daughter's screen time, because that's just kind of all that there is, it seems, these days. Even though there's a ton of things that she could be doing, it's just sort of the go-to. And so I have to be very cognizant of how I choose to frame my statements. And so I have to couch the concerns within not the feelings of, oh, get off the screen, which is what I want to do. So that's helping me to be more aware. And that was what we were talking about last week, was that awareness. What's going on, right? What's making you act?
Does anybody else have a sentence that they could finish for us in the chat?
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
It's okay. You're shy. It's Friday. It's like we're at the end of week 7. I think a lot of people are starting to feel a little bit like, so
exactly.
We get it.
Yeah, I've really found that I haven't been watching a whole lot of television because by the end of the day, I'm just so sick of screens from having to do everything virtually that I'm just not doing it. Oh, I'm grateful for my family. Oh, thank you, Melissa. That's awesome. Yes, which is tough to do when you're stuck with them all day, right? You can get a real sense of, oh God, I really need a vacation from this person.
All right. So just a quick review then of last week. We were talking about the interest iceberg and about that notion of getting stuck in our positions and needing to go beyond or below the surface of the water. And really what needs to happen is we need to listen and we need to start paying attention to what is being said, because otherwise we're never going to be able to get beyond those positions. We're not often listening to one another when we're stuck there in position, because we're really trying to hold on to that and defend it. So we really need to try to do things to allow the person to feel validated and heard, which means we have to stop talking. But we're afraid sometimes to stop talking, because if I'm not talking, that means I'm not being heard, which is kind of an ironic perspective of that. So we just have to recognize that the more we are willing to listen, the more likely the other people will be to want to reciprocate. And that's how we can start getting the conversations going.
So we decided to use Mr. Potato Head as our stepping off point today. I found this fantastic picture of him in his cat pad, which I thought was adorable. This actually came from a friend of mine. She uses Mr. Potato Head with her kids. And you know what? I think sometimes we struggle more than children do, but it sort of comes from the old adage that we need to listen twice as much as we actually talk. And we coincidentally have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So my friend takes her Mr. Potato Head apart and she hands it to her children, and she gives one child the ears and one child the mouth, and she uses it sort of as a talking stick. So the one that has the ears has to put their listening skills on, and the one that has the mouth gets the chance to voice how they're feeling in that moment.
Paul.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Carissa. See, I did that last time. So we want to ask you guys another question. And so again, just going up to your poll up at the top, we're going to ask you to fill in one more poll. And that is, do you believe others would think that you are a good listener? So I know my answer is probably that depends on who I'm talking to. So I tend to be a very good listener with people outside of my home, but I can be a very poor listener to my husband at times. My husband's a very analytical personality, and so he likes to go around things more than once in his mind. And so I can get to a point where I sort of switch off, but then there are other times where that sort of bleeds in and I'm switching off all the time. So I need to be a little bit cognizant of actually paying attention to what's being said, because there are times where he says, "Are you actually listening to me?" And the honest answer would be no. So I see that a lot of other people probably feel the same way as I do.
Well, it's good. It's good that there's people who are thinking that they are good listeners. So I think that speaks to the variety of skills that we have. And it may have something to do perhaps with the next slide, which is that for some of us, so maybe not you good listeners out there, but certainly for those of us who are more like me, we tend, especially in conflict, to be all mouth. I know that there's people, my husband is the opposite. When we're in conflict, his mouth just disappears. He stops talking and I have no idea what's going on. So that's another strategy that people sometimes use in conflict, and that's not helpful necessarily either. But for those of us who tend to go all mouth, that's because I think that we're often, like I had mentioned earlier, worried that we're not going to be able to get our position across. And so we just think that if we can talk loud enough or long enough, angrily enough, persuasively enough, that by the sheer volume and weight of the words, that we're going to be able to convince the people to come on over to our side. But we have to remember that in conflict, we're not in a debating situation. We're not a debate club. And we shouldn't be looking at conflict as something that requires a win. It needs a resolution, which isn't necessarily the same thing. So we have to be talking for very specific reasons. So yeah, we have to use our mouths, but it's not just for more airtime. It's not to be able to hone our message or our argument more. And the only way that that's going to happen is if we decide to come to the party dressed a little bit more like this.
So all ears. And it's not just about actually stopping talking, but it's actually about listening to the words that are being said to you. And when we do that, we really have to put our position, coming back to that iceberg, our position on the shelf for the moment. Because if all we're thinking about is what our position is in this argument, then we're never going to be truly open to hearing what the other person says. So we really want to just be thinking about the words that they're saying and making sure that we're actually understanding what is being said. So this is our opportunity to start to use some of those active listening skills to make sure we're getting to their interests and their needs that are underneath that position that is there.
But do we really listen? Is this how we go through life? Do we look for opportunities to really have to really just stop talking and listen? Is that what we try to do? Seize those opportunities? Why is people do? Kate Murphy, who wrote a book about listening, said that listening provides opportunities to engage, understand, empathize, cooperate, and develop as human beings. In writing her book, she interviewed people from Boston to Beijing. She talked to CIA agents, focus group moderators, radio producer, priests, bartenders, and furniture salesmen. And what they all said was that the key to learning about others is listening. But there are subtle things that we have to be aware of. There's nuances that we need to recognize that help us to be good listeners, and pitfalls that we have to avoid.
So we're going to ask you to share with us, if you're willing, what do you think is going on with somebody, or how do you think someone behaves that makes you believe that they're not listening to you? So is there behavior or things that they do or things that they say that indicate to you that they're not truly listening? Hopefully we get some. Not looking at me, yes. So that whole body language piece is such a big key. Rolling their eyes. Well, they might be, they're interpreting, right? They're interpreting it by their position when they're rolling their eyes. Predetermined position, absolutely.
Or their answers don't make sense because clearly they weren't listening.
Do things around, okay. Yeah.
Or ...
Arms crossed, yes. So we're really stuck in our positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thinking about yourself, I know for me, it's yes. So it's that multitasking. And sometimes it's sort of not our fault either. Maybe the person that we're having that communication with has chosen a time that isn't appropriate for us to actually be able to give them our full attention. So if you have children at home, can you truly listen, especially in a conflict type of situation, if there are other ears around, or if the children are being distracting, they're being loud and playing and doing what kids do? That's going to make it much more challenging. Or are there other people around? Maybe you're doing that out in public, which isn't as big a deal right now because you're probably not doing that as much right now. But thinking about that multitasking piece of, the TV is on, you're on your computer, you're on your phone, and you think that the other person is going to be listening when those things are going on. Okay, maybe the person doesn't know what I'm talking about or the history, so it does not make sense to that person. Okay, so there's a good way to sort of get underneath those pieces, which is what we really wanted to be able to communicate today, is making sure that people understand what's being said and what are the needs and wants that are underneath the position, because that becomes a really amazing way to know somebody on a much deeper level.
And sometimes we make assumptions. We make assumptions that the people that we're talking to are fully aware of where we're coming from, right? So we're assuming that they do understand that background. So sometimes it is fully on us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we as listeners have to be aware. We have to beware. We have to be aware of a lot of things. We need to be aware of our body language. So if we feel that we're looking like these people, kind of giving them the say what now, or okay, stop talking, like I can't. This is, I mean, if someone's got their hand here and they're going like, maybe we need to say, okay, perhaps now is not the time, or you're not ready to hear this, and we need to be aware of that as well. But as listeners, we have a responsibility to make sure that our facial expressions and body language match, so that we can provide that encouragement to the speaker to continue and to feel like they do have our full attention and engagement, and that we are present with them in that moment. The problem is that we've never really been taught how to listen. So we've got a little video that we're going to watch. Hopefully it's going to work. It worked in practice, so it should be good.
So it is a little bit on the quiet side, everyone. We've tried to work out getting it a little louder, but we haven't been able to get it there. So you may want to crank up the sound on your computer if possible. But it is hearable. It's just not as loud as we are, but maybe that's just because we're used to our voices.
Is one of the most important, being a good listener is one of the most important and enchanting life skills anyone can have. Yet few of us know how to do it, not because we're evil, but because no one has taught us how. And, a related point, no one has listened to us. So we come to social life greedy to speak rather than listen, hungry to meet others, but reluctant to hear them. Friendship degenerates into a socialized egoism. Like most things, it's about education. Our civilization is full of great books on how to speak. Cicero's Orator and Aristotle's Rhetoric were two of the greatest in the ancient world. But sadly, no one has ever written a book called The Listener. There are a range of things that the good listener is doing that makes it so nice to spend time in their company. Firstly, they egg us on. It's hard to know our own minds. Often we're in the vicinity of something, but we don't quite close in on what's really bothering or exciting us. We hugely benefit from encouragement to elaborate, to go into greater detail, to push just a little further. We need someone who, rather than launch forth on their own, will simply say those two magic words, "Go on." You mention a sibling, and they want to know a bit more. What was the relationship like in childhood? How's it changed over time? They're curious where our concerns and excitements come from. They ask things like, why did that particularly bother you? Why was that such a big thing for you? They keep our histories in mind. They might refer back to something we said before, and we feel they're building up a deeper base of engagement. Secondly, the good listener urges clarification. It's fatally easy to say vague things. We simply mention that something is lovely or terrible, nice or annoying, but we don't really explore why we feel this way. The friend who listens often has a productive, friendly suspicion of some of our own first statements and is after the deeper attitudes that are lurking in the background. They take things we say like, "I'm fed up with my job," or "my partner and I are having a lot of rows," and they help us to focus in on what it really is about the job we don't like, or what the rows are really about. They're bringing to listening an ambition to clarify the underlying issues. They don't just see conversation as the swapping of anecdotes. They're reconnecting the chat you're having over pizza with the philosophical ambitions of Socrates, whose dialogues are records of his attempts to help fellow Athenians understand their ideas and values in a better way. Thirdly, good listeners don't moralize. The good listener is acutely aware of how insane we all are. They know their own minds well enough not to be surprised or frightened about this. They're skilled at making occasional little positive sounds, strategic that delicately signal sympathy without intruding on what we're trying to say. They give the impression that they recognize and accept our follies. They're reassuring us they're not going to shred our dignity. A big worry in a competitive world is that we feel we can't afford to be honest about how distressed we are. Saying one feels like a failure could mean being dropped, but the good listener signals early and clearly that they don't see us in these terms. Our vulnerability is something they warm to rather than are appalled by. Lastly, good listeners separate disagreement from criticism. There's a huge tendency to feel that being disagreed with is an expression of hostility. And obviously, sometimes that's right, but a good listener makes it clear that they can really like you and at the same time think you're wrong. They make it plain that their liking for you isn't dependent on constant agreement. They're powerfully aware that a really lovely person could end up a bit muddled and in need of some gentle untangling. When we're in the company of people who listen well, we experience a very powerful pleasure. but too often we don't really realize what it is that this person's doing that's so nice. By paying strategic attention to the pleasure, we can learn to magnify it and offer it to others, who will notice, hear, and repay the favor in turn. Listening deserves discovery as one of the keys to a good society.
So there was just some really great little points that were in that video that we thought were worth sharing. And while some of it seems to be more appropriate for family or friend or relationship kinds of scenarios, I think that even in a workplace, there are going to be people that, you know, you're not super fond of, but you still need to be able to listen to them, whether it's the coworker or a boss or a client that comes to the counter or whatever. We still need to be able to step aside out of the role of this person's coming and I don't really like them, and be able to just still listen to the things that they have to say, whether it's a concern or a criticism or feedback. So those same skills can be applied in a variety of different situations. You just need to sort of manipulate and mold them a little bit to match the person that you're having that conversation with.
Yeah. I liked a few of the things that they talked about on there. You know, when they talked about the egging on, I thought that was kind of a neat phrase, because we often think of egging somebody on as being sort of maybe a negative thing, but they were really talking about that encouragement to talk. So go on. Tell me more about that. So it's really encouraging that individual. I really want to hear what you have to say, and I really want to understand your position in this situation. The other thing that I really liked was them talking about the urge clarification. So it's really looking for those deeper pieces. When I don't understand, or I'm not sure what the person is saying to me when they're talking to me, I want to ask those questions that are going to help me get to the root of that. So tell me more about that. Why do you feel the way that you do? What is the motivation here for you to want this in your life? So we're asking those questions because not only are we wanting to find out, but they may not even recognize that that's what's going on for them. And so when we're having that conversation, they're sort of digging a little bit deeper for themselves and saying, why am I sitting in this position as well? So I really liked that one. The other one that I really liked was the don't moralize. So it's that whole piece of not feeling like we can be honest with somebody. As soon as we feel judged, then we're not going to want to share honestly with someone else. So it's really important that we are trying to put that judgment on the shelf. Truthfully, we are all guilty of judgment. I think it's just human nature to do so. But I think what is really important when we're listening to somebody is to question that. So when we're hearing those judgmental statements coming into our mind, we need to ask ourselves, should I say this out loud? Number one, is this fair or is this right when I'm having this judgment of this person? Maybe there's something underneath this that I don't understand, and I'm making a judgment based on some very surface things. So we want to try to put that judgment on the shelf as much as we can. I also liked that they were talking about separating the disagreement from the criticism. So it's sort of the idea in Intercom that we talk about is separate the conflict or the issue from the person or from the relationship, because that's really the key piece. We can, and I'm sure we all have had this experience, especially with the people we love. We don't always agree with the people we love. It doesn't change the fact that we care about that person. So we can like a person and not agree on things. And that is going to happen in every situation. Even people that come from the same house of upbringing, you're still going to have those disagreements on things. But now if you bring people in with all of these histories, as somebody had said in the chat, that we're coming into these new relationships with a history behind us that other people may not understand. So we want to try to keep that in mind when we're talking to people. And the last piece I really love about this video is the sharing of pleasure. And I love that concept, because I think that when we let people be heard, we often fear that we're not going to get our say. If I don't talk, if I don't share my position in this moment, then I'm not going to get heard. It's actually the opposite. You're not being heard at all when all you're doing is ramming at each other. But if we actually stop and we listen to the other person and they feel like they've been heard and validated, then oftentimes what's going to happen is that person wants to reciprocate that feeling to you. Oh, thanks for listening to me. Tell me more about what's going on with you. Why are you where you are? So it's just something to think about when we're trying to have those conversations.
Because what we really want to do is share the air, right? We want to be like Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head here, and take turns with the ears and the mouths, and have that knowledge that it was so great to be listened to that I now want you to be able to have that same experience. So despite our lack of opportunities to necessarily have learned how to be a good listener, except for those 6 of you who are already really good listeners, you can workshop us later.
Yeah.
There are things that you can do to be better at that. And as Kate Murphy, who wrote that book on listening, said, our goal is to explore the other person's point of view and not to sway it. It takes us back to those positions, and we're entitled to have those positions, but we also need to know why we have them and why they're important to each other, right? Irene Leonard, who is a mediation lawyer and the writer of Coaching for Change blog, said that there's a couple of layers of listening or levels of listening that we should be aware of. And where we often get stuck is in the level 1 listening, where we're listening for the words, but we're still in our own heads. We still have all that judgment. We still have all those preconceived notions and those assumptions. And we're really just listening for the words and those gaps to allow ourselves to have an opportunity to talk. An example that she uses is we listen on that layer when we're trying to ask for directions. So you're really just in your head, where do I need to go? What is the content? What are the words? But it's not about the person giving you those directions. And in that sense, you don't necessarily need to know how the person who's giving you the directions is feeling, because it's very superficial relationship in that moment. But we want to try to get to the next level, which is level 2 listening, where we step outside of ourselves and it's really all about the other individual. We listen to what they're saying, how they're saying it, and also what they're not saying. We kind of try to read between the lines, as it were, and recognize that there may be some gaps that are residual to that 20-ton shield that they're carrying or that armor that they've put on. And we need to encourage them to say, yeah, it's okay. I'm okay hearing what you have to tell me. So please go ahead and share that information with me, and I'm not going to do anything to hurt you with it. So that's, I mean, again, more family relationship oriented, but certainly we walk into our boss's office often with a 20-ton shield because we're afraid of the response that we may get. And while that's going to be different from a civilian versus a military type of an environment, we still have to kind of come to that resignation, I guess, that there are some things that we're going to change and some things that we're not, but we still have to try to be able to listen authentically so that the person doesn't feel that they have to be hiding behind that shield all the time. So be curious and listen, really listen for the answers, because then you're no longer planning what you're going to say next. You're really focused on actually hearing what that person has to share with you.
We love this quote from the Dalai Lama. When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. And I think that's so true. When we listen, we're going to find out something new, even about the people we have the deepest connections with, even with the people that we have the most intimate relationships with. We're going to find out something new, a new layer about that person that we didn't understand. And we only know what it is we perceive to know, because we can be totally wrong. We say, oh, we already know that, but we know it based on our filter in the first place. So we really want a chance to get to know that person on a whole new level. And so again, just as Carissa's saying, we want you guys to be curious. We want you to ask good questions. We want you to clarify. We want you to try to not judge the situation. So we wanted to give you a bit of an example of how that might sound in a simple, small conflict that might be going on in a house. So I'm just going to come back to a situation that Carissa had brought up last week, and that was about spending too much money at the grocery store. And I'm going to ask Carissa about that. Why did you spend so much money at the grocery store?
What do you mean?
I mean, you didn't follow the grocery list.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did stock up on a few things that were on sale, but why are you so worried about how much I spent?
Well, we're supposed to be on a budget.
Okay, but it was groceries. Why are you concerned about the budget when it comes to groceries? It's the stuff that we're eating. It's what we need to live.
It's not just the groceries. Why are you concerned about the budget? Or it's the amount of money that we're spending in general. I don't like to see us spend that much money right now.
I didn't realize you were so worried about us spending money.
Well, yeah, that, and we don't know how long this COVID thing is going to last. I took a look at our investments yesterday, and they've really tanked. And that means that the kids' RESPs, they aren't doing well. So how are we going to pay for them to go to school? How are we going to recoup all of this money so that at some point we can have the retirement that we expected to have?
Sounds like you've been thinking a lot about this.
Well, it's kind of driving me crazy, to be honest with you. I just need to know that right now everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just need to know that we're not going to lose our jobs and that we don't have to work until we're 90 and that the kids won't be in debt after they graduate from university.
I hear what you're saying. I didn't know that you had been stressing about this so much.
I just wish there was some guarantee that everything's going to be okay, you know?
I understand. I do too. I'm sorry that we never had a chance to talk about this before. Thanks for telling me what's been on your mind.
Thanks for listening. I'm sorry I reamed you out about the groceries. Is there a reason that you felt the need to stockpile everything?
Yes, actually. No. So hopefully in our not so Academy Award way, but weren't you glad that we didn't make you guys role play? See, we were thinking about you. So hopefully what was going to happen, or what you saw kind of happening, was the blue iceberg was the position that Heather had, of the concern of the amount of money spent on groceries. And had the conversation gone very defensively with the respondent saying, well, what are you talking about? It's likely that there wouldn't have been an opportunity to kind of dip below the surface and find out that the things that were really on her mind were that fear of losing their job, the need to follow the budget, and ultimately financial security. And so it was an abbreviated example, obviously, but as that pleasure was shared and that opening was provided of, hey, wow, that was really cool, and I found out some new stuff, and that package was passed over, the question was, well, why did you feel like you needed to stock up on groceries, which would have allowed, had we had more time, to really delve into the green side of the iceberg, to show that stocking up had to do with needing to shop less often. Stocking up is something that was done, or is something that they wanted to do because they didn't have the security of having food when they were growing up, and shopping in the grocery stores now makes them nervous and depressed because of everything that's going on with all the COVID requirements. And so what would have resulted was them realizing that that shared interest that they have was security. And from there, they are able to move on. So you have to be able to, in that moment where you walk through the door and the person says, why did you spend so much money? You need to be able to choose in that moment to be curious instead. Why is this person responding or coming at me like this? And it takes a certain amount of personal maturity and a level of clarity to be able to, in that split second, sort of like an anger management, when we're talking about that, in that moment, you get to decide to find out more about why the person is saying that, instead of just boom, firing back, right? And getting into it, into something that isn't going to go anywhere. So just that moment of saying, put on your little curiosity hat, say, I wonder what else might be going on. And just, it comes back to the giving the benefit of the doubt a little bit, and just stepping back and saying, tell me more about why this is how you're feeling or sounding.
So we have some homework for you again this week. And again, it's not about necessarily conflict management. It's getting to know people on a deeper level. So what we've created is a document of a menu of conversation starters. So I'm going to put that up on the side, and you can download it now, or you can, oh, sorry guys, gotta find that.
So if you click on the top of the handout,
you're going to see that. Assume, yeah, that's not it.
and then
Yeah,
somewhere.
there we go. Perfect.
And if you
So if you're having trouble with that, we're happy to have Orsolia is our Wizard of Oz behind the scenes that's actually listening and watching right now. And she can email that out. She has all of your emails from when you logged in, and she's happy to send that. So if that's something that you need or you are struggling, just let us know in the chat and we'll make sure that we send those things off to you afterwards. So again, some of them are kind of fun, some of them are kind of serious, some of them are more geared towards your family, some of them towards your significant other, some are acceptable to use amongst coworkers or even with your girlfriends or guy friends or whomever it is that you may be having a virtual date with. Right now, I know a lot of my friends have been doing that. They're still connecting and having sort of video chats with each other. So it's a great way to sort of start that conversation and get things going and getting to know each other on a little bit of a deeper level. I know these things are really fun for my husband and I. Sometimes we'll do these kinds of things when we do long road trips at anywhere where we have to be in the car for a long period of time. It's a great way to pass the time, sort of a caged audience, which is kind of nice. So I hope that you'll have fun with them and recognize the value in getting to know somebody. Because when we really get to know people, there's less positions because we understand people on a deeper level. And so we have that deeper understanding of why they might be holding the position they are, and getting to those interests becomes a lot easier as we move forward.
And it's also a really good opportunity just to practice listening, right? You get to find some stuff out, but because you're asking a question that the answer doesn't really matter, it's a lot easier to practice really listening and encouraging them to elaborate on their responses. So people are never too young to learn this. So if you do have small people around, it's a really valuable skill to teach them, especially in this sort of me-centered world that we've got going on right now, to be able to have them learn at an early age the importance of listening to others and finding out what's going on is, a really valuable skill. So if you did all of that, does that mean it's happily ever after now? Well, for Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, they have clearly seen the value of sharing that little pleasure bubble back and forth from listening, and they've both got their ears and their mouths back, but not necessarily, right? In the example that Heather and I gave, the little role play that we did, it's not that the conflict is solved, right? All that we've been able to do so far is come to a common understanding about a situation or a problem or a circumstance that we have in common, that we can now begin to move forward from that, right? The issue of having spent too much money still needs to be looked at. The issue of not knowing and uncertainty is one that we don't have the answers to. But what has happened is that we've calmed the waters. We are not tense. We are not angry. We are not fighting to hold on to a position. And we're able now to be more open with sharing our thoughts and feelings in ways that are going to allow us to resolve that conflict eventually. Maybe not right now, but it's setting up the stage so that we can move forward with a very productive conversation. So next week, we're finally going to get to the part where we're talking about what that conversation might look or sound like. And of course, there's going to be some do's and don'ts around that as well, because what we don't want to do is have created all of these opportunities to finally be a little bit more aware of what's going on with the person, and then shut the lid on that by saying something that gets us back right to where we're creating more tension or restarting that argument. So that's what's going to be coming up if you choose to join us again next week.
So we want to close with the same resources that we have each week. And again, the same ones really apply to what we're talking about today, thinking about using the Canadian Forces Members Assistance Program or the Family Information Line. If you're finding that the issues that you're having in your relationships is more than you feel that you can handle on your own, these are great resources to reach out to. it's really great to be able to talk to somebody that's objective and that isn't a part of your circle, because they're going to just listen and not have that ear for hearing their position on anything. So it's a great opportunity. So for those of you that are possibly public servants, or if you are working for CFMWS, on the handout that we created, on the back side, we've also included your employee assistance program, which would work exactly the same way as the Canadian Forces Members Assistance Program. You just call up, tell them what kind of help you would like, and they will connect you with somebody in your community, and those things are all available for free to you. It's part of the service that's provided. Okay. So we want to close with our takeaways one more time, just as we did last week. The first thing is to remember to focus on what they are saying instead of how you will respond. So if all you're thinking about as you listen to that individual is what your retaliation or what your response is to their argument, then you will never be able to hear their interests and their wants and needs underneath those things.
Remember to get that clarification. Just think about the song lyrics. If you keep getting them wrong, obviously there's something else that you need to do to get some clarification. So reflect back what you've heard, ask the questions, try to make sure that what you're hearing is what they're actually saying, so that you can be sure that you're both on the same page.
And just as with Mr. Potato Head, maybe just throw that mouth away for the time being, unless you're asking good questions or you're giving them that encouragement to share what is important to them in that moment.
And while it's important to look interested, you also don't want to fake being interested. You actually want to be interested. So if it's possible, put away all of the things that are going to be the distractions, which is kind of obvious. Do all of the things that we know from intercom or other communications classes that you've taken, sit beside one another, or don't have a table across each other, or, separating you, those kinds of things. But really, legitimately, genuinely be interested. Be in the moment with that person. Be in their space. And sometimes it's going to be really uncomfortable because you might be hearing things that like, oh, I didn't know any of that. But that's okay, because now you have more information, you have more understanding. And sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. So sometimes you have to just be like, okay, I'm here, I'm listening. And then all of a sudden, when they start kind of spilling, you're like, holy crap, I had no idea. And you're like, okay, now I really am interested because this is important. And, so you can move forward. So look interested, be interested, and fake it till you make it if you have to.
Mm-hmm. And don't pass judgment. And this, I think is a great example of when we think about, the people that we really love talking to in our lives, it's because they don't do that. I think about the people that immediately I want to call up or share with when I'm struggling with something are my good friends. And I've stayed friends with them for 20 plus years because I can call them and they don't necessarily agree with me. They don't necessarily side with me, but they listen objectively to me and they allow me to talk, and they don't pass judgment on me, and they still love me or care about me in the end. They can disagree with me and still like me as a human being. And I think that is what we want to think about when we're listening to somebody else. Be the kind of friend that you want to have listen to you. And I think that you're going to get a long ways if you do that.
And even if you're not talking to a friend, right? If you're talking to a subordinate, if you're talking to a coworker, these are people that you are, if you're in the military, you're going to be with for, however long a posting season is, or a posting period, maybe longer, depending on where you're at. But we're never going to get along with everybody, right? We're never going to be in a situation where, oh my gosh, my troop is the most amazing. I love every single one of these people. I would, go to the mat for them all the time. Like, no, there's people like, oh, please let them be the ones that are the first over the hill. Like that's just life. But you still have to work with them. You still have to respect them. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings and we want to have that reciprocated respect. And the easiest way to do that is by putting it out there first. If you put it out there first, if you show that as a coworker or a subordinate or whatever, that you're prepared to listen, you're going to suspend that judgment, then that becomes kind of how you're known. And they're like, yeah, you can go to that person because they're objective and they will listen, and they're not gonna, be a big jerk. So those skills are transferable all across the different police. See, next week is speaking, so hopefully I'll learn how to do that better next week. I can't even finish my sentence. I don't even know where I'm gonna go with that. But the last point is that we can all learn how to be good listeners. They're skills that are practicable, practical, concrete, and doable. We just need to go back to point number 3, and that's close our mouths sometimes, and we can learn how to become great listeners.
So thank you very much for joining us today, guys. That's what we have for you today. We will stay online in case you want to have any comments or questions for us for a couple of minutes. And we hope to see you same time next week for our Authentic Conversations webinar. So again, thanks for coming out today and joining us.
You're welcome.
And Alana, if you don't feel comfortable asking those questions online, I know that you did get Carissa's email there earlier. Feel free to shoot those off to us if this is not a comfortable forum for you as well.
These ones, we don't actually do certificates for these ones because of the timings of them. Usually things that we provide certificates for will be, 1, 2, or 3 day kinds of things, or MAM that's longer. So we don't have any statement of attendance would be fine. Yeah, I guess we could probably do that.
Ursulia,
You're
can you
welcome.
answer that question? The statement of attendance, is that possible?
Have a nice weekend too, Kathleen.
Thank you.
With regards to statement of attendance,
Sure.
It's a little bit tricky because of the privacy issues around the emails that are provided during registration and the fact that we can't actually verify anyone's identity. So let me go back to, let me discuss that further and see if there is some sort of possibility for providing something. But at this time, we haven't been able to find a solution for that, unfortunately. I'm seeing that there have been quite a few COs who have been requesting this. So let me take that back to ArchAIM and see if we can take another crack at how we might be able to do that. Keep your for now, keep your confirmation emails that show your registration and links. But we have information in the back end. It's just a matter of how do we use that and what are we allowed to use it for. So more info on that.
Right. I wonder if it's possible. I know when we teach MAM or Ursulia, sometimes the chain of command will just reach out to us and say, was that person in attendance? And I guess that if they were to do that, you could say that their name had logged on, and that's really the only information
and some people
you'd be
don't
able
log
to
on with their full
give, right? I don't know.
We'll brainstorm how we might be able to do this. If anyone has a suggestion, or if anyone has been given any sort of suggestion from your command team, let us know. But we'll certainly look into this because this seems to be something that's coming up more and more frequently, and we do want to be responsive to that, and we do want to be not appreciative, but we do want to acknowledge the fact that people are participating in these and taking the time and learning things. So we'll figure out how to get around that.
Ben has a really good idea here. He's saying that he saved the documents because they have a date stamp on them. So I didn't realize
not
that
everyone
happened when you did that.
provides
so
handouts during their presentation. So then if there's nothing to download, exactly. So
right.
So yeah, but good suggestion, just
Yeah.
not necessarily a one size fits all approach.
Maybe that's something we could implement, is just to have, I know when I've taken some professional development, it's right in the folder is a confirmation of attendance sheet that we basically sign off ourselves. We could create a download at the very end of the webinar that we put up that people could download that just says,
I like that idea.
you know,
Yeah.
sort of an attendance, a self-proclaiming attendance, I guess. That would, yeah.
Which is different than the confirmation emails, which Arun is saying that
Which is fair,
the command team
I mean, it doesn't,
in Cold
that
Lake
doesn't
anyway
prove
isn't
that
happy
you
with.
actually
So,
attended anything,
I mean, it would be a
right?
little
Whereas,
bit more.
Heather, your suggestion is great because that means that the person
Right,
has to
exactly.
be there at the end and download it and sort of attest to their own participation that way. Yeah, well, and we'll just have to figure out logistically on our end who that should then be sent to, and how we go about that.
Yeah. How do I get the CAF Connection form recording?
Yes.
I actually don't know.
So,
Orsolia, for the CAF Connection.
CFMWS hasn't yet created the spot where all of those former recordings are going to be housed. So we have made available the links to those recordings to our health promotion teams. So if you reach out via email, we can, we can email you the link to the recording that you're interested in. And they're currently just basically hosted on the Demio server, and you can access them. You don't have to log in. There's nothing you need to download. You just click on the link and it opens in your browser, and you can watch them at your convenience.
Great. Okay, excellent. Awesome. But I'm happy to send that other email, Ilana. So
absolutely, family members can listen, Ilana. That's no problem. Just bearing in mind our first suggestion that you may want to have a little bit of parental discretion if there are younger family members listening, as not all topics will be appropriate for them. But yes, family members are always welcome in everything we do.
Because everything that we do is like always for 18 plus, right? So if you've got family members that are 18 plus and you're in Edmonton and you want to register them for the course, then that would be an option. So absolutely, like you can do a gather around the living room table and do a class together.
Yes, if you want them to have the link, they can join us on any of our Facebook sites to find that link, or we can you can just share the link that you had with them, because it's the same one for everybody. So you can just copy and paste that into an email for your family members in another household, and they can click on it just like anybody else does.
And then get their registration little email.
Thanks,
there
Cindy.
You go. Awesome, Cindy. You rock. See, look at that, us working together.
Yes,
countries across country. You're welcome, Melissa. All right.
Thanks, Ben.
More messages? You too. Okay, why is this message? Okay, perfect. Awesome. So I'll look forward to getting your email, Ilana, and everybody else. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the sunshine if it's sunny where you are, and let's just hope there's no more snow and no more tragedy anywhere.
Awesome. All right. Take care, friend. See you soon.
See you.
Thanks, Orsolia.
Thank you, great and wonderful, powerful Oz.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, how about art of speaking, being mindful of what to say and when words to use? So what is the question? So that's next week. And those are definitely going to be the topics that we cover, Arun. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening. Was there anything else? Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, good. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take it easy.